Welcome, everybody, to the latest episode of the Two Fish at the Table Poker Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Legend and one of PokerStars.
And I'm your other host, East Coast Sam on PokerStars.
And Sam, I'm going to raise to 60,000.
60,000?
Yeah. What do you do?
300,000.
I fold. Oh, good fold. All right. Very good. Welcome, everybody, to our continued coverage of the poker show that's sweeping the poker world by storm. Game of Gold. We'll be covering episodes 7 through 11. Episode 11 dropped today. We both had the opportunity to catch up on it. And so we'll be all caught up on the podcast side of things as we head into the final stretch of this program. And I'm very excited to talk about the ups and downs, but the mostly positives of the sort of, I guess, the middle slash sort of prelude to the ending of this program.
Yeah, I mean, this is the round 2, as well as the entirety of round 3 were covered in these episodes. So we're down to the final 6 competitors. And thus far, yeah, it's been a very interesting show to watch. They've promoted this by telling it was a cross between Poker After Dark and Survivor. And we've seen that sort of wax and wane as time goes on. You know, is it a little bit more like Poker After Dark, or is it a little bit more like Survivor? And again, we see a good mix of both individual and team play in these episodes here. And a new interesting challenge in round 3 that I've noticed has gotten something of a mixed reception online on Reddit. Some people really like it, some people really don't like it, as well as in the YouTube comments. So we'll obviously offer our thoughts when we get there. When we left off last time at the end of episode 6, it was the Taiwanese on Taiwanese heads-up match between Maria Ho and Andy Stacks with, big sort of hand that occurred at the end of the last episode, and we're right in the middle of the action here, which I always like a sort of a way of getting into it. You know, just start with the action right off the bat at the top of the episode, so we can go from there.
Yeah, and again, we have just in the very first 10 of this episode, called Quick and Easy, about 51 minutes long in length on YouTube, some river magic saving Andy Stacks in the very first hand, prompting Maria to burn 2 time extensions to make a correct fold. And this, again, kind of continues a trend of Maria being the most capable of being willing to use those gold coins for time extension. We talked last time a bit about some of the nuances of when to use a gold coin, when not to, and honestly, it kind of throws out all the speculation out the door when you just make the correct fold anyway when you make the time extension. So honestly, making the correct fold in this format is always a good thing. So props to Maria for using the extra time to make it happen. Unfortunately, I did find the pacing of this match is a little bit off. I often find that the very first match of an episode, when it's continuing off of the start of the last episode, at the end of the last episode, sometimes the pacing is a little bit off because we then skip multiple blind levels as Andy starts to win a few hands off screen to accumulate chips, and then ultimately ace queen runs into ace jack all in, and Andy flops the jack to take the match. But again, I'm not saying this is a bad match or anything. I'm just saying that when a match gets split in 2, sometimes I wonder if it would have been better served to have put it all into one block instead of split it in half.
No, that's fair enough. I mean, they may just want to get this match out of the way so they can move on into the other matches, because there's quite a few other matches that they had to get through in this episode with some interesting hands mixed in here. So I don't necessarily mind it. It's just kind of sick, the ace jack versus ace queen, that happens like that. So yeah.
Yeah, which then leads us, because again we'd had the previous first team on team battle just be a 3-zip blowout. So now we finally have a match where the pressure continues to build, tournament style, with Josh already playing against Andy Stacks. And what was probably for me the highlight of this team versus team matchup here, just some low key, really flashy, good poker action, amplified, of course, with those great backroom reactions to the matches. And I was watching some of Daniel Negreanu's Dat Poker podcast Game of Gold recaps, and they had mentioned how during some of the interviews there that the teams that were not playing in this match, so the other 2 teams, don't get to watch those teams playing, which is why they didn't have any reactions in those teams in the bedroom, which explains that lack of those reactions. But I'm just a little surprised that they didn't want to give us as many eyeballs on the screens as these hands played out.
Yeah, we talked about this in the last episode. I definitely think they should be allowing the other teams to watch and comment. I first off think that's fair. I mean, you're going to be talking to these players during breaks and talking about the action they've been doing. So I think it's fair to just let them watch. But also, it's more entertaining to hear their reactions, and oh, if we play against them later on, I'm going to be doing this against them because I've seen them watch this footage. Again, if everybody's watching each other's hands, then it's fair that there's no advantage or disadvantage over it. So, I think they should be in season 2 allowing the other teams to comment and get their commentary and get that interesting footage in the episodes.
Yeah, and you might not even have to use that footage if their teammates' reactions are really strong, but it's just good to have that surplus of footage just in case you have some really cool moments that are caught on camera.
Right.
But back to the Josh Aurier and Andy Stacks, there is just some very interesting poker action here. Josh Aurier takes the early lead. Andy, maybe a little too loose of a king high call in that very first hand. Andy then flops quad threes with king 3 against king 8. But, obviously with a run out like that, it's kind of hard to win too big a pot when you've got so much of the board locked up on your hand. And then there was a great hand where Andy flops a set. Josh Aurier turns a straight, of course, and then the board pairs to give Andy a double up. Again, just some great back and forth. Reminds me of some of our favorite final tables, like in 2009, 2010, where these bad beats and flip-flopping hands, run-outs that are always very exciting heads up.
Yeah, I mean, I really had no idea where this was going to go until the end, and I felt like both of them deserved it. I mean, Andy, not to spoil what we're going to get with Andy Stacks later on, but he just got so unlucky in a number of spots with just the cards he was dealt. He seems to be a pretty decent player overall. I mean, no blame cast on his name at all. He was just getting these bad spots throughout. We're going to talk about the worst spot later on, believe me, but just some sick stuff. And so to see him actually to let the pacing of the episode slow down a little bit and really see his thinking as a poker player and what he's like was very nice to see.
Yeah, because the overwhelming majority of this episode is this match, so we really get a chance to see a lot of hands play out. And there's a couple, Andy, you say he plays pretty good, and I'm not saying he's a bad player, but he does make a few bad folds in this match, which is partly on the play of Josh, but you have to give some of the the lion's share of the blame on Andy for making those incorrect folds. There's one hand where he folds top pair on the river incorrectly, and then there's the infamous king 7 king 9 hand where Andy reads strength in Josh Aurier and really doesn't count on him having an inferior king in that spot. His kicker does play, both their play, they're playing their kicker there, and on a paired board. I understand, you're thinking, he might have a queen there, but, your heads up, he could literally have 3-6 or 10 deuce, or, there's just so many hands you could have that you're beating that. I think, I'm no heads up expert, but I'd probably make that call, honestly.
Yeah, I would make the call too. I mean, again, live reads, in the moment, you just never quite know, but I would make that call. Yeah, I would make that call.
And again, I'm the last person to say, I would have made this play here. We're amateurs at best here, but again, just in the grand scheme of things, I think that's maybe the one spot that I find the most issue with. But props to Andy for fighting back and or trying to fight back. If he does go all in with ace-7 against Josh's queen 9. When the blinds get up there, the hands kind of play themselves. Josh flops a queen, wins the match, and I also really dug the post-match interviews from both players. Those honestly, those post-match interviews are really some of my low-key highlights of this entire program as well.
Yeah, and also just as Andy walks in, the look on David's face, David saying you folded some winners was just like that reaction that he had, because it's just good to see that sort of instant reaction after the match is over, with that memories fresh of what the hands were like. To just see that and see that look on his face is just really nice.
Yes, props to the producers for allowing the player that just played to go back to the back room, not just going for interviews while the next player comes out onto the stage. Give the teammates a few moments together before they move on in the itinerary there. So that was great, which ironically gives us kind of this amusing kind of classic main event. Not quite a rematch, but in a sense a rematch between two of the final 3 in the 2004 main event. Josh Aurier versus David Williams. Both of them obviously would lose to Greg Raymer, our great contributor to our podcast a while back. And it's funny because obviously this podcast began with looking back at those classic main events, and they didn't really, these two, they squared off a little bit in that main event on some of the episodes. So I was excited to see how their poker strategies have evolved over the last 20 years, and to see a back and forth of arrogance and ego and fighting back. And we didn't quite get that, did we?
No, not quite. I mean, we had a ace-7 versus king-7 hand where we had a little bit of action there, a little bit, but then Yeah, one of the sort of recurring themes is just David Williams just being a little bit too eager to get it in there, being a little bit too eager to push it in. So he pushes it in with ace four, and RA calls it with pocket nines, and everybody's just shocked by this. It's just crazy.
Yeah, again, we think back to people used to refer to like that suited weak ace as kind of the blocker effect. If I have an ace, that cuts down the odds. My opponent has ace, therefore I can overplay this hand. But obviously with Josh, he might have thought maybe he thought about the nines for a little bit, but it was a four bet, and they're playing so deep that it just screams almost like a an ace X kind of raise. Like I wouldn't put him on tens, jacks, queens, even kings there, or even aces. Really, I don't think you're gonna make that raise. Size. We talked about raise sizing back on the 04 main event, ironically, and this is kind of a quick little flashback to that gameplay mechanic back then. And as a result, Josh takes down another 30 coins, and with that, we have the first half of the tournament of sorts sort of concluded. We have the winners bracket and then the losers bracket playing for elimination going forward. And I was thinking about who I would have picked to be the favorite in the winners bracket, and I kind of had to give it to team Josh, Maria, and Fedor. Honestly, that was my, just before we even got into the team discussion of who goes first and when, that was my first thought.
Absolutely, same here.
Yeah, and so, but as a core of the whole episode here, concluding the first half of round two, I thought it was an under the radar, very solid episode, kind of in the middle of my hierarchy of the first 7 episodes. Very happy. Again, I was on board of rough round two structure, although as round two goes on, it kind of dragged out a little bit longer than maybe I thought it should have relative to the other 2 rounds took up. But I was very excited to see how the winners bracket would go on with episode 8.
Yeah, I mean, the trouble with a sort of 2-pronged format where you have, the first sort of match and then you have a winner's bracket and a loser's bracket, it's going to naturally drag out a little bit. Yeah. But I do think there's enough intrigue in the second part with the winner's bracket. The idea of having the winning team automatically go on to the last round, and then obviously the loser's bracket gets eliminated. There's a little bit of intrigue in there so that the second half does feel, a little bit juicy, especially with, again, the cast that we have here. I mean, yeah, it's a no-brainer that, this team of Maria Ho, Fedor Holtz, and Josh Aryeh is the favorite. I mean, no offense to the rest of the field, but I mean, that's just like a murderer's row of 3 really accomplished, terrific poker players. And to also just, the final note that we end episode 7 on with Jungle, just like I can't repeat what he said, like just like some of the most like awkward like dialogue about girls and women and being afraid of girls that I've just ever seen. It's just like to just have this be the heads up match to start episode 8 with just Maria and Jungle and just this like awkward vibe. It's just like a great hilarious note to start the episode.
Yeah, I mean, it reminded me of the Kelly Minkin, Justin Schwartz sort of table aura that we had, a while back. Again, it just seems like the relationship between men and women at the poker table can never quite be, just right. I mean, I think, obviously a lot of sports are male dominated, and that's, part of it. But, you have to wonder, maybe in the future we'll be able to weed out these awkward, frames of mind and stuff. But as we hit to episode 8 called The Queen, a 55-minute episode, so I think it's the longest episode of the show, I think, so thus far. We have the winners bracket, and we now know the order of each team who's going to go first. So Maria is playing first for her team against Jungleman, and then it's a very solid match between Jungleman and Maria. I think again, we have those comments you allude to. Maria does kind of dominate the very, very early phases of the match before she ends up having to make another time extension driven correct fold. So again, and given how the coins totals will work out by the end of rounds 2 and 3, it's very amusing that Maria was the one using the most coins.
Yeah, absolutely. And, with a title like the Queen, you might imagine that Maria, just steamrolls over everybody. But there are a couple times where Jungleman does manage to get the better of her. So it is nice that they again had those hands in there. But yeah, don't call your episode the Queen and have Maria Ho be the thumbnail if you want to build up intrigue. That's just a little note to the editors of this.
Yeah, so each episode on YouTube, there's the thumbnail, there's the title, and then there's like a 1 or 2 sentence description of the title. And when you just open up a YouTube page on like a laptop, you're gonna see it. I mean, you can obviously block it or cover it up after, but you're gonna see it. And it was often a sort of spoilers for me, and so I was a little frustrated, but not frustrated, but a little disappointed by that. But Maria ends up closing out Jungleman to take the match and the 30 coins. And it was at this point that I realized that my sort of like internal barometer of like intrigue or suspense, it's a little bit less for the winners bracket because
Yeah.
it's not do or die at this point. It's so really, I was more looking forward to the losers bracket because that's really, the emotional core of this round. Because if you're moving on to the next round, okay, that's important, but I tend to care more about the ones whoever that was voted out versus the other ones that weren't voted out.
Right. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's kind of my thought on that. But again, I still enjoyed the first match, and then Maria moves on to playing against Kaina. And we almost had a chance to interview her for this podcast. We'll probably get her after the poker busy season. But Maria's a big influence in her sort of poker career, from what she says in the interviews and whatnot. And right off the bat, I was a little let down by Kaina's lack of like a poker face. It seemed like she was just kind of, even if it wasn't a tell per se, it just didn't seem like she was very stoic or composed from a facial expression standpoint while playing against Maria.
Yeah, I mean, in the spoiler alert, kind of doesn't beat Maria. According again, the title of the Queen just kind of indicates that, and the thumbnail indicates that. But yeah, I mentioned that in the bust out interview, Ho was there saying that kind of felt a little intimidated, that it was an intimidating setting for her, and not that she was tilting per se, kind of throughout, but definitely felt like she was, the table talk was a little bit, indicating that she was nervous, saying like this feels a lot less friendly than the first match, sort of looking around a little bit. It's again, I get it. It's like a big, it's a big production. You're on camera for the first, real time in your career in a poker show. But hopefully kind of can learn from this in future endeavors, because I hope she's on other shows, because I think her personality comes through very well throughout this show. She definitely seems to have I mean, again, she's won $1 million playing poker. She's definitely a talented poker player. So hopefully she can learn from this, and then in future shows, be a little bit more stoic and gathered together. Like Maria, again, is like, just such a great personality to have and somebody to learn from. So hopefully kind of can learn more from Maria over as time goes on about that.
You guys have that kind of, because she just could never seem to make a pair, in this sort of match. She'd get some, pretty good hole cards and just never get any sort of favorable runouts. And heads up play, you got to hit a few boards here and there. I mean, you can only bluff and hero call of ace king high so many times and get so far with that. But and again, it comes down to a ace four against king, ace queen, all in pre-flop, and Maria turns a whole bunch of outs and then rivers a flush to win. And again, Maria racking up 30 more coins to add to her already very impressive total. And not forget that the winning team of round two in this winners bracket would all earn 100 more coins. So to carry on to round four, which we later learn, not in this episode, but a couple of episodes later, that round four is the final round of the whole show. So I don't believe that was really clear. Like I kind of feel like they could have said like the final round or the final table instead of round four when they were announcing like the structure of round two. So I was a little surprised by that actually. Which that thought aside there, gets us to our next match in the winners bracket: Maria versus Yo Viral. And unfortunately, this is only partially match only partially shown, and then is completely ruined by the trailer for the next episode, which I absentmindedly forgot to stop the episode to not see, because the trailer gives away without giving away the ending of this match, even if after it ends with Yo Viral taking a fairly sizable lead in the match when Maria shuts down a bluff attempt.
Yeah, I mean, it's again just kind of a shame that it's promoted like this with a trailer at the end and all that. I always try to never watch the trailers. I never watch the trailers for any of these episodes. Try not to look at the titles, try not to read the descriptions and all that. So again, for season two, they should just be keeping this in mind about they should have a very clear, like, next time on Game of Gold, so you can pause the video and not watch the trailer. And again, you can kind of tell like that Maria was going to win. That's kind of just where it was trending for, even without a trailer. I mean, even with her not winning these big hands toward the end of this episode, because again, you have this title of the queen. Again, no big deal. Not like a huge deal breaker criticism, but again, something to keep in mind in terms of the next season.
Absolutely. And as far as my final score for episode 8, I gave a 7.5 only because the poker action was very solid, but it wasn't an exciting episode structure wise because we're just covering kind of like, it's like a reward challenge in Survivor. The reward is moving on to the next round, whereas, immunity is about survival. I always care more about the immunity challenge than the reward challenge in Survivor, for example. So
yeah,
just kind of solid, but not lower because the stakes aren't really there quite yet in this round 2 at this point.
Yeah, fair enough. I agree with that completely.
Which gets us to episode 9, The Final Prayer, a 53-minute episode, which begins with the conclusion of the winner's bracket and then the start of the loser's bracket. There's again some more chipping up off screen by Maria between the edit of the last episode, which is a real letdown because it's not really a cliffhanger that Maria is now behind viral in this match if we're just going to cut to her being caught up before the next episode begins.
Yeah, it's a bit disappointing, but Maria does take it home, and we get sort of a very long segment in which Team Fedor is celebrating with each other and happy with each other and shouting out each other. Like they seem to have a really good rapport with each other, which was very nice to see. Like it was nice again that they took that opportunity to have that sort of that this isn't just like a little side activity, a little side show they're doing. Like everybody actually seems to be having a good time. They're actually making connections with each other, so it was nice to see that.
Yeah, and there was some great like sort of exit interviews from all exit because they're not eliminated, but they're kind of like end of round interviews from all three, talking about the team dynamic and how happy they were, and they're moving on to round 4 with 100 more coins, and so Maria now takes over the lead on the coin leaderboard. We don't know how that plays out for round 3, but we know that she's in a very good spot to be at least probably top 2 in the chip lead. Went for the final table at this point, which gets us to Team Nikita and Team Charlie preparing for the losers bracket, which begins with some pretty interesting psychology between the approach for this round. We have a very pessimistic Olga, lamenting her team's chances in this match, and then some fighting between Charlie and David.
Yeah, it was just funny to see Olga just be like, let's just be realistic. We don't have a good chance. I believe in myself. I don't believe in our team. While Jonas is like doing push-ups and trying to sound aggressive and all that. Going into this round, definitely they are the ones that have the least experience. Not, again, they're talented players. They've done a lot of good stuff in the game, but it's just kind of that struggle of knowing that you're the underdog. Do you boost up your self-esteem and try to be like, I'm the underdog, this is what Hollywood movies are made about? Or do you just say to yourself, we don't have a good shot, I'm going to try my best, but let's see what happens. And then to see Team Charlie just getting angry at each other. Well, not really Andy Stacks. Andy Stacks is kind of off to the side. Specifically, David and Charlie just getting angry at each other is just a very interesting dichotomy to have, because Team Nikita, they're not angry at each other. They're just pessimistic, versus these two are actually angry at each other.
Yeah, it's funny because Negreanu and company talked about how even if you're not the favorite to win a heads-up match, you're still not like it's not 0% chance you're going to win. They're thinking maybe it's like 35, 65 at worst for a heads-up match because the cards play such a huge factor in who's going to win a match. And I even feel like if I was on that team, I'm inferior to all these players, but I feel like I have my own fair shot. As long as you don't fold the best hand and you don't call it the worst hand, then you're probably fine. So I feel like it was a little too negative. It's easier if you're down 2-zip and then you're negative, but when it's 0-0, anything can happen in poker. You get ace against king on the very first hand and win the whole thing. So I understand why she was a little negative, but I also think that there's just too many variables to be totally counting yourself out at that point.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, a 65-35 percentage, or maybe 70-30. That seems reasonable, sort of between Olga and Charlie, which is the heads-up match. I would give Charlie about like 65-70% odds, because again, like anything can happen. Spoiling that heads-up match, if the tens are in the other person's hands and the jacks are in the other person's hands, it's a completely different dynamic. And especially with the dynamic of there's teams of three and it's King of the Hill style, you really do have a decent shot at winning the whole thing, even if you're in the losers bracket. But again, it's just sort of the dichotomy between Olga again being respectful to her teammates. They're all meditating together. They have this kumbaya where the underdog approach versus David actually, like, I mean, again, when we're saying angry, I mean saying like you're fucking exhausting to another person, and Charlie's discussing EV and David saying like you're selfish. I mean that was visceral. That was like the most we've seen somebody get angry, except I guess for Jungle Man earlier in the show. In through this whole show, and again goes to show that like everybody really wants to win this, like everybody is committed emotionally to this, so it adds an extra element.
Yeah, and I something that struck out to me from the Olga Charlie match that kind of reminded me of the Maria kind of match was just Olga just didn't have a poker face that I felt really was becoming of the situation. I feel like it was a little too emotionally transparent, so sort of, and she actually gets off to a pretty good start in that first hand. She bluffs Charlie off of top pair, and so she has a few more chips than him when the tens and jacks get dealt out. And it's kind of a game over after one hand afterwards when she's so short, but again, it just speaks to my point that it was really there was just you swap a cup, one hand goes differently, and the match is a whole different story. But unfortunately, Olga does lose, and she's actually pretty emotional afterwards, which I was surprised by because I feel like she kind of got all those emotions out earlier, and you would think maybe after seeing how she didn't do anything wrong in that first match really, so I thought maybe she might be happy with how she was negative maybe before the match was started, and then had a chance, but either way, the structure is that you can still lose and your teammates still play on after you. So there's still hope, and Lucas against Charlie is evident of how just takes a little bit of just solid poker to turn things around.
Yeah, I mean that was a big moment that Olga was upset during her interview and then goes into the green room and she's still upset. I mean, I think it just has to do with she got just simply unlucky there, that she wasn't the heads up match was very short. It was only 5 hands shown of the heads up match, and the fourth hand is just this crazy cooler that again, had the cards been the other way around, who knows what could have happened, and Olga would have busted Charlie. So it's important to show those emotions, to have those character moments, to really get across to the audience that again, this isn't just some small little thing. This is actually something that everybody's committed to, which I really like that they took their time throughout this entire show to have those moments, that they could just stop with the action for a little bit. Still have plenty of poker play, still have stuff that the people who are into poker can enjoy, but have these character moments that gives us a sense of these people's personalities as well.
Yeah, and so the match between Lucas and Charlie, for me, like my entertainment value of this episode rested almost entirely on the outcome of this match, because I was kind of checked out of the Maria Yoviral match because I kind of knew it was going to be a Maria victory there, and I just felt like if Robinson loses this match, it's going to be a 3-zip sweep on the losers bracket, and that's just boring. So the fact is, Charlie does start to run him over, like pretty substantially, calling queen 8 high at one point.
Yeah,
and that was pretty incredible. And it just seemed like the wheels were coming off the bus at this point. And then Lucas gets 3 consecutive all-in hands victories, a couple times from behind, and he has to river a superior two pair to bust Charlie. And had that match gone Charlie's way, I would have probably dropped my overall score up this episode probably a good point and a half, because it just would kind of sink all the drama out of the losers bracket. But as a result, it kind of saved this episode for me a bit.
Yeah, I mean, Charlie is a very entertaining player to watch. I mean, he's always talking to the other person, always sort of thinking out loud. He's very animated. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I mean, no offense to Charlie or anything, but yeah, if he had won that second match, again, not that, a Nikita Luther Charlie heads up match wouldn't have been interesting to see, but I would have felt like, it's you're already down 2 players, and Nikita would have needed a clean sweep after that point to win. Like it just, the dramatic intrigue just wouldn't have quite been there. So I am glad that Lucas was able to pull that one off, even if again he did get lucky throughout. Queen 8 versus King 10, he manages to double up. Jack 7 versus King 8, just all these different crazy spots. But again, it was it was interesting to see that and to have that little intrigue of, can Charlie do a clean sweep, or can Lucas get a point on the board for his team? So.
Yeah, it kind of felt like it was the first true underdog victory in one of these heads-up matches. I really felt that. So that was good. And we only get a tease of the next match, which is Lucas against David Williams. That would begin in episode 10, which was called the Life or Death, 54-minute long episode, which concludes out the rest of the losers bracket, and thus by extension, or sorry, the majority of the losers bracket, and beginning with this third match here. Unfortunately, again, David. Well, no, not unfortunate, but Lucas makes a pretty atrocious river bet, if you ask me, by with that bet, and then David ends up winning by with his straight, and from there is some pretty substantial bluff attempts by Lucas, which don't really work out so well for him. And again, I found it really odd, some of the spots he was bluffing in. Like, he was bluffing just complete air, like 7 high, 5 high. Like, I just kind of shut down. If I have like 5-3 suited and the flop comes like Jack 8, I'm just check folding at that point. There's just no hope there when the pot are still relatively small, and you can just kind of fold away and get away cheap.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, just 5-3 versus Queen 6 when Williams has already called 2 streets, and you're gonna go and put 400 on the river. I think you have to just pick a better spot for that. Again, we're Monday morning quarterbacking this, and we're less experienced than Lucas. But again, hopefully he can watch the tape and learn from this and sharpen his play for future endeavors.
Yes, absolutely. And again, I kind of felt like if Lucas had stopped those like complete air bluffs, he might have actually pulled off a win in that match. I felt like the chips he bluffed off, exceeded the chips that David won off him in weird ways. But obviously bluffing is part of poker. I can't fault him for trying to get David to fold, in spots that he thought he could pull it off. But as a result, we end up in match point for round 4, Nikita versus David Williams. And this might have been, again, up there with the most exciting poker heads up action I've seen from Game of Gold so far, I think.
Yeah, this was a really, really fun match to watch. I mean, specifically the Queens versus King 6 hand. Like, that was just like, oh my God, what is going on? To see Nikita, pull it off was just terrific. Really was.
Yeah, and again, there was a couple of plays by Nikita. One is she makes a last-second call with queen after a very scary river that gets, every draw gets there, flush gets there, straights get there. She pulls off a amazing call there with the clock ticking down. Like, she did not want to use any of her time extensions, which again I was kind of surprised by. No one really besides Maria was really willing to, when I think the value of 1 or 2 coins is more valuable than you guys survive this round anyway, so you might as well use them. Otherwise, they're serving no purpose. And again, another couple of bluff spots. 7 high bluff on a 4 club board gets David to fold the river after he bets. I mean, that was pretty sick. And even though David does double up to kind of win back, it just was a very exciting match that had to be exciting to make sure there was suspense for the rest of the losers bracket.
Yeah, I mean, David also played, pretty well throughout. I mean, this was not, him screwing up and, Luther taking advantage of that. Like, again, I really felt this could have gone either way. I figured because, there's some time left in the episode that, she would pull it off. But yeah, I mean, going into the Andy Stacks Luther heads up match, I was really like, oh my God, this could go either way. Will my winner's edit theory for Olga come true or not? And to also start it off with an interview from Andy Stacks saying that he felt under pressure. It's like they're definitely trying to drum up this to make you think that they could pull it off. And then we get to the last hand presented in this episode, and it's just like, oof, darn.
Yeah, it's brutal. Just the worst river card that gives Nikita 3 6s and gives Andy a straight. So it's about a 3-1, like a 3 million versus 1 million chip deficit for Nikita heading into the next episode. I was happy though that we had another heads up team match go to 5 rounds compared to just 3 rounds with a couple of the other team matchups. So that was great for suspense. Obviously, if you're going to make a show as dramatic as possible, you want to see as many matches go down to sudden death towards the end. And particularly for this bracket, of course, it's more important. I wasn't super optimistic for Team Nikita by this point, but we've seen crazier comebacks before in poker. And, again, one double up and you're even, and Andy had, made a couple of, shutting downs on rivers. So you could imagine maybe a few, less than optimal plays could even the things. And then unfortunately we get to episode 11, which aired today, Squid Game, 52 minutes long. And it's just, and again, another kind of deflating hand where Nikita limps ace deuce and when Andy has ace king, and then Andy raises and Nikita shoves. I can't stand the limp shove of ace deuce. I know how much you hate ace deuce, but I really can't stand the ace deuce limp shove move.
Yeah, I would have folded there. I mean, I know an ace deuce ace heads up is a strong hand, but it's ace deuce. You've still got plenty of chips. Just fold and get to another hand. But unfortunately, she goes all in. Andy, of course, snap calls, and that's lights out. Though she does hit a 2 on the turn, so you think maybe she can get a 2 on the river, but unfortunately not. And that's it for Team Nikita. And kind of again a sad sort of moment that Andy kind of just gets off the stage. Sort of, they shake hands. Andy gets off the stage, but Nikita just kind of like stays there for a little bit, sort of lingering. And in the green room, Lucas and Olga are sort of lingering. Like it's they really again gave him an opportunity to let this moment sort of speak for itself, and then did exit interviews for the three of them, which was nice. So I'm glad again they took time to have that happen.
Yeah, and again, those exit interviews are really just really nice little snapshots of players after a match or after elimination or something that I really like. And yeah, I mean, so that gives us now 9 players playing down to the final table of 6. I was 3. I've already found spots there, and so we. Looking at the episode count here, we kind of had, if you can let's say 6 episodes for round 2, and as round 1 took 4 episodes, so. And then round 3 just takes 1 episode. So I ask you, Sam, were you okay with this sort of pacing / structure of how many episodes were devoted to each round, or do you think maybe it should have been a bit more evenly balanced?
I don't really have a strong opinion. I mean, like I said, with round 2, you had a 2-pronged tournament structure. So you had to have time to have that play out. And then with round 1, I mean, you've got so many players you have to get through. That again, you're going to have to take a long time for this. I mean, for round 3, we have Indian poker, which is heads up. You have 1 card on your head, and it's a very quick game. I mean, all these rounds happen very quickly, so I'm okay with it being 1 episode. About reality television is it's not supposed to be a reflection of everything that happened in real life. You want to show the most interesting moments, because if you just show limps and folds, that's going to be really boring to watch. So I don't have a problem with this being so quick.
Okay. And then even before round 3 really starts, Ali comes out, talks to other players in kind of a tribal council. How are you feeling about this? This happened, yada, yada type thing. At this point is when it's revealed that round 4 will be the final round / the final table, which I wasn't surprised by this point, but I wasn't expecting say maybe last week that would be the case. I thought maybe there'd be 1 more round before the final table. And so at this point, Ali tells everybody, you have 10 minutes to pick a partner. So there's 6 people. It's up to, that he's talking to at this point, because the other 3 are moving on to round 4. And we have a brief moment where kind of says she doesn't want to be of Charlie. And it never occurs to any of the players that maybe they're going to be, against their partner, which I instantly thought was going to be the case, because I just kind of made sense that the final table would probably be a 6 max. So,
Yeah.
3 made it in there as 6 people. How you're going to, break up the remaining teams and to make 3 more, you're probably going to come in half. So I was surprised no one thought that. So the teams we end up with are Andy and Yo Viral, Kaina and David Williams, and Charlie and Gentleman.
Yeah, it's just funny. Like they say, you have 10 minutes to partner up, and they all form their partners within 15 seconds. So it's just like very quickly, everybody just partners up. And also, right before round 3 began, they did this sort of thing where the remaining players are standing in the studio, and Ali Najad's asking them questions about their performance. And so he asks kind of do you feel you deserve it? She's like, well, I'm moving on, so it doesn't matter if I deserve it or not, which I love. Was a great moment. And we get to again have these little character moments, which is really nice. And after everyone's partnered up in round 3 with like 9 minutes and 45 seconds left, like what are you supposed to do? So Jungle and Charlie just meditate with each other, and they do this really funny like fast montage where they sort of just like cut to them meditating, and you just get like random times on the screen. Like I thought that was funny.
Yeah. And so the actual game is called Indian Poker. They're going to have 100 big blinds in a heads up, 20-minute levels like before, same structure. The rules are you win half of your opponent's coins, just like that. And if during the match you fold an ace, half of your chips that you have at that point go to your opponent. So there's a lot. That's kind of the strategic linchpin of this entire style of Indian poker that plays a major factor in each of the matches. And after they decide their partners, they play in lowest coin matchup order. So the players with the fewest combined coins at that point will play first, which doesn't really matter much. I mean, the coin totals that everyone had played no role in their partners or anything like that. So it was really just kind of random who would be in those spots. So David and Kaina end up playing in the first match as a result of that. And it's funny how how many coins you had didn't give you an advantage in this round as far as picking your opponent or some sort of advantage, like how Rio Vile had that for picking his team member first in the draft for round 2. So that kind of devalued the coins for this round at least. And these matches, like you said, are very quick. And I'm curious of you, Sam. Were you okay with this choice of a game for round 3, or were you caught off guard by how we kind of had vanilla and strawberry ice cream for the first 2 rounds? This is more of a maybe like coconut frozen yogurt by comparison.
I don't mind it. I mean, I think that there should be different games in the circulation so that you have to try new things. I mean, everybody was talking about how they had to, none of them really had much experience, beside maybe Kaina. I mean, Kaina had played this before, but none of them really had experienced this, and they had to come up with new strategies and devise different things. You have to memorize cards. You have to, decide if your opponent has an ace, what exactly you're going to do in order to bluff them. I don't mind it as a choice. I like it as a game.
No, I had no problem with this game in a vacuum by itself, but I did feel that it doesn't quite. It stands out a lot from the other 3 rounds that we're talking about, which is just 4 players heads up, 4 player sit and go, team heads up match, and then the final table. Like I felt like if maybe they could have had, if they'd had maybe 5 or 6 rounds in the show, they could have had 1 or 2 of these sort of off center games to sort of make it feel like a more complete ice cream sundae of sorts. But again, so I like to mix things up, but I thought that it didn't fit with the sort of the model in my head I had after having seen the relatively simple first 2 rounds.
I still don't mind it. I mean, again, I think you need to have something new in order to.
Right.
I mean, unless you want to do something like, I don't know, have Omaha high low instead of no limit hold'em or Raz or something. That might be interesting. But yeah, I mean, I think you have to do something new in order so that it's not just the players with the most experience with Texas Hold'em win this whole thing. You have to try out something new. You have to do something a little bit different.
No, I understand. Yeah. And again, the one other game was they use the same deck until only 10 cards are left, and then something to deck out. So you'd have to play 21 hands before that would really matter. So if you're sort of half counting the cards in your head, then the numbers a bit better maybe than your opponent might. And then probably one of the most important parts of this round is the backroom strategic talks that happen before the matches begin, which is, again, I was worried maybe we wouldn't get that sort of social dynamic because it's kind of an individual game at this point. But they do divide them to 3 and 3 and then go from there. So they all have a chance to talk about, the 2s, the 3s, the aces, which cards are the most important, which really those 3 really are the most important cards to be on the mind lookout for. Whoever gets the most aces on their forehead is probably at a disadvantage, and whoever is dealt against a deuce is going to have the biggest edge. So the David and Kaina match is first, and it's a pretty quick match. I think it might have only lasted 1 level.
Yeah,
I was paying attention correctly.
Yeah, I think so. It was only about 6 or 7 hands in the coverage. And Kaina actually wins, which is nice. So she moves on to the next round. And yeah, it's just kind of crazy to see this play out and to see also the other players' reactions to this game that many of them hadn't played before.
Yeah, and probably there was 2 big details from the first match. One was how there used to be 1 hand per match where they would blur one player's card until a bit later in the hand. So it was kind of like a half wild card hand for the audience, about having like an announcer be like, "Okay, this is our mystery hand of the night. We'll see what they have here." So that we can kind of play along. And I kind of assumed it'd be a pretty polarizing card, a 2 or an ace or something like that. But nonetheless, it was still kind of fun to have that just be unannounced on the screen for us. And then David ends up shoving all in when Kaina has an ace and he'd misclicked with the chips, because again those chip denominations were kind of confounding some of the players over the course of Game of Gold. And as a result of Kaina taking half of David's coins, she actually has a pretty respectable 81 coins, which is in last place. 81 big blinds is still workable.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it could be anyone's game, but on the other hand, you're up against players that have 250, and it's a 3-1 chip at disadvantage. By all means, you can overcome it, but still, it's just 3-1. Would you rather have three, or would you rather have the one? I think you'd rather have the three.
That's very true, but it's also a take all or nothing payout. Only the first place finisher will get some money. If it's obviously there's pay jumps, if you can fold an extra orbit around with a shorter stack, then you're probably fine. But you've been trying to win. I understand what you mean there at that point there. But nonetheless, until having 26 coins it was kind of stuck at 26 coins all season long. So to more than triple it at the very end is still, I think, a win for her, if you ask me.
Oh, absolutely.
Which gets us to match number 2, Charlie versus Jungle. The battle of math and tells and psychology and everything. Probably the most indicative of those sort of undercurrents of Indian poker here. And I enjoyed this match a lot.
Oh, this is terrific. I mean, just to begin, you have Charlie saying that he feels he has an advantage because he went to India, which is just such a great line. And just again, that the two of them are bantering back and forth with each other and talking about who has the edge and making comments about calls and things. Like it just was really funny to watch.
Something that stuck out to me a lot in watching these matches, it seemed like the hands that involved the 6 and a jack. I was just really surprised by the moves made by the other person. So if I'm facing a jack, I'm folding like most of the time. Like I was really surprised how often someone would like raise over a jack. And then conversely, a lot of players were facing a 6 and were maybe even like considering folding. Like I was just really surprised by that. I felt like closer to the center of the the 13 cards, a 7 or 8 was where I would be, that's where I kind of merged my decisions. I was really surprised by that.
Yeah, it's a tricky game. I mean, what do you do if you're facing a 6? I mean, I suppose, yeah, you'd be calling most of the time, but again, it really just depends on the action. And again, live reads did seem to be a pretty big thing, just how they were talking strategy and all that. So it's just so many tough spots, really.
Exactly. And at one point Jungle ends up folding an ace against Charlie's queen and has to give his that point a fairly sizable lead to Charlie at that point. And then Charlie ends up folding aces a couple more times to Jungle, and then we get an amazing 3 versus 2 all in, which again you kind of would expect would happen in this game here. And so Jungle ends up taking the match and a good chunk of Charlie's coins. And again, I got to put a lot of stock into Jungle Man's chances at the final table with any number of chips, especially with many coins he's got for now. Middle of the pack-ish, but still very workable. And that leads us into probably the most depressing of all 3 Indian poker matches here. Yo Viral against Andy Stacks.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I was talking about earlier with ace versus ace. I mean, just so sick, especially with the rule of you fold an ace and you lose half your stack automatically. I mean, just so sick. And then the hand afterward, ace versus 2. I mean, just so sick. I mean, it's just crazy.
Absolutely. And unfortunately for Andy, it's just each hand goes against him. He runs like crap. And he runs as bad as Team Clubs ran in round 1, basically. And so as a result, Yo Viral takes his very sizable number of coins and adds even more coins to it. And we now have our final 6 set up here. And, the spread of coins is kind of with 81 at the bottom. And Maria Ho, despite using by far losing more coins for extension than the rest of the field combined, 261 coins, which really demonstrates the power of playing, a lot of heads-up matches in round 2, which I have mixed thoughts on putting that much stock into one round of. I think it should be fairly even, to be honest. But with that, she has to be the easy favorite, at least to start off with the final table to take home the $436,000. And from there, I still think it's anyone's game, honestly. But obviously, having more chips is very essential.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the chip distribution, you have Maria at 261, Yo Viral at 239, Josh Ari at 220, Fedor Holtz 195, Jungle dressed as a leprechaun at 109, and then Kinda at 81. So yeah, I mean, Kinda again has 81 big blinds. She can still mix it up in there, and 1 or 2 big pots against any of the top 3 stacks, and she's in the mix. And so is Jungle at 109. I mean, you still have plenty to play with. But yeah, I mean, it's with Holtz and RA being as talented as they are and having those two big stacks, yeah, I mean, Maria Ho's a terrific player, and 261 big blinds gives her enough room to work with, but she can't really play big stack bully. She's not too far ahead. She's not so far ahead of the pack that she can do that. So we're gonna have to just see how things go, six max, and see how the first few hands turn out.
And I have to assume that the structure will be the same, the same like 20-minute levels and the same like numeric blind levels that they've had. So, it did feel like I think like level 3 is like quadruple the blinds of level 1. So, 81 blinds becomes 20 blinds very quickly. Even 261 becomes, 65. So I do wonder if, because it's the final table, if they'll make it half an hour, or if they'll make the blinds a bit less aggressive early on, or I'll have to see, because if the faster the blind structure, the less edge the top chip counts have, obviously, because everyone's shorter so quickly.
Right.
So I'll be very curious. As far as the sort of the coin ending totals, I feel mixed about how everyone got to their coin total, because obviously we know Yo Viral closed did a shutout of Team Nikita in the start of his bracket, and then Josh already was playing clutch in both round 1 and round 2. So I remember their coin racking up totals very well, and I kind of feel like guys like Jungle or Fader, I don't really recall them doing all that much to sort of garner all those coins. So I do wonder if there could be some more fine tuning of the coin structure. So I didn't feel like it felt 100% in my head just right about this player definitely earned each and every one of those coins. That's just my vibe.
Yeah, it's also the edit too. As we mentioned, Jungle got sort of a smaller edit toward the beginning of the season, as did Fedor. I mean, Fedor, as time went on, I feel his edit got a little bit smaller. So as a result, there's sort of a dichotomy, a distance between how many chips they got and what their screen time was. But yeah, I mean, again, I think it's, they'll tweak the coins, I'm sure, for future seasons. I think it's okay. I mean, I'm now willing to forgive the 100 coins thing, knowing that in the round 3, the player that won got to take half of the coins of the other person. So it's like, okay, they could have gotten 100-ish coins in round 3 if they'd played. So I'm willing to forgive that part, because that was a problem I had before. So yeah, I think it's okay, the coins as they are. It's just, again, kind of at 81, Maria Ho at 261. Just that dichotomy of can she pull that off or not?
Hey, we had 4 ladies when the season began. We have now less than half of the field, but we still have 2 ladies in there. So good to know it's not a total sausage fest, the final table here. And I thought it was a very unique episode 11. Not my favorite, but definitely top half of the show. I liked how we had a really fast paced round, but I just thought that maybe we could have, if they make seasons 2, 3, etc., maybe have more, mix in a few more rounds that take less time. Maybe have like an 8-round season, and you eliminate 1 or 2 players per round, and you could have all different sort of weird stuff, and again, just spice things up. Obviously, the first season is going to be a bit more vanilla, but I think there's definitely potential to have a very diverse, each season feel unique from each other.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So again, I'll ask you, Sam, before the final table begins, airing on Wednesday, who is your pick that you think will win? Who do you think?
I mean, I do have to pick Maria. I mean, just because I think she's played consistently well throughout. She's at 261. I think she can maneuver her stack and pull this off. But again, I'm not willing to put it, write it in a piece of paper and put it in a safety deposit box, because anything can happen. And there's fewer than 70 big blinds that separate the top 4 stacks. So you just don't know.
I'm not sure why, but my gut is telling me Josh Aria is just somehow he's going to pull us up. He's not the chip leader, not even number 2, but he's right in the middle there. For some reason, I'm feeling the Josh Aria vibes. He's been on a great run the last couple of years. I just think it's going to continue, and I actually think that heads up will be between Josh and Jungleman. For some reason, the Jays are getting to me right now, so that's my prediction for the final 2. I think Josh Aria will win it. They could be the first 2 gone in the next episode and that'd be amusing, but that's just my prediction, and we'll see what happens after that, obviously.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So just covering a couple other small bits in the poker world. The Roller Series of Poker in Paradise began, I think, yesterday, and so the first couple events are underway. Negreanu got his first poker vlog in there, having some tough luck in the $1,500 buying an event. So I haven't seen any, news stories or descriptions of the organization of any like major problems. It's obviously still early, so given that we are a little skeptical of maybe some of the business choices of the brand and for this series, we'll see how things go. But so far, with everyone seems to be happy so far.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And I'm just checking the WSOP website right now. They're really pushing Lon and Norm here. They have like a couple of different stories on WSOP.com with Lon and Norm. Yeah, as long as everyone's having a good time and they're trying to, put new content out there and try out these new events, we'll see how it goes. I mean, fingers crossed.
Yeah, and CBS Sports Network and PokerGo will be broadcasting some of the final tables. I think coming up probably next week we'll see a couple of them, and hopefully we'll be entertained by that. We'll see. Obviously it's still poker, it's just a different location. So I'm optimistic that the entertainment value of that will be fine, but we'll have to find out. Other news, we had some comments on my Reddit post of our last episode regarding Game of Gold. So I will read some of these. We had 5 comments. So that was pretty good. So we had from Baguette Schkimaget, gentleman's a little bitch. He dares to complain about the ordering he agreed to in front of Kaina, who he and Johan clearly bullied into giving up the more valuable first place slots. And then someone responded, "Yeah, Jesus, that ego. I get he might be a fan favorite kind of, but damn, so unbearable." Then we have Kaina is far and away the worst player on the show, so that makes sense. And then someone says she still sacrificed EV to jungle plus Yo, which she didn't have to do. As Charlie said, or doesn't affect team EV, only individual EV. And then another response was, all I'm saying is Jungleman is the best heads-up player on the show, and Kaina is far away the worst player on the show. It's understandable why Jungleman felt that way, and extremely understandable why she was chosen to go last. Having said that, Jungleman was clearly tilted and expressed himself very poorly. So a little bit of talk about, I guess, the fight between Jungleman and Viral. Again, it's a very raw look into people, in a stressful situation. I understand tempers are going to flare, and Jungleman had, was upset about how he was shut out of earning any coins, but here he is now still in the final 6 with a chance to win the whole thing. So, words aside, he's still in there with a chance to win.
Yeah, I mean, kind of, I think, has done fine thus far in the coverage. And again, to remind everybody, she's won $1 million playing poker. She's clearly a talented poker player. So, I mean, it's just hard to say who's the worst and who's the best, especially when, this was round 2 we're talking about, and they didn't know what round 3 was going to be. So, it's hard to say who the best and the worst is going to be. And yeah, I mean, tempers flare, $456,000, is a lot of money at stake here. And you have obviously, you're in front of the cameras, you're in an environment that, you're in Korea, you've maybe never been to Korea before. There's a lot that's going on that, it's hard to assess at that moment. And also there's probably things that happen amongst the players that we didn't get to witness. I mean, again, this was going on for hours and hours, and this is being cut down to 50-minute episodes. So there's a lot that's going into this that's hard to read. So, that's just where I'll leave it. I mean, there's good arguments to be made about EV and who should be going first based off of that. But there's just too many factors to consider that we don't know about to say who's the best and who's the worst and what the order should have been.
Absolutely. Other news in the poker world. So I've been, trying to engage more of the poker world on Twitter, and there was a funny joke tweet posted by Rupert Elder, who you might remember from a couple of the main events in the early 2010s. He played Negreanu on day 5, and he was responding to a tweet by Negreanu about like, what's your poker what if moment? And Rupert Elder, I learned as a joke, said, oh, in 2011, if I had triple barreled a gut shot and busted in 6700th place in 2011, and I was like, is that a typo? Because you finished on day 5 and you outlasted Negreanu in like the top 200, and he was like, oh, I didn't realize that. Sorry, changed it to 2012. So I, poker nerd fact checked him on his own poker accomplishments in 2011, and that was pretty funny. I figured I'd just share that because I thought that was really, really cute.
It's your Google.
Exactly. And then PokerGo on YouTube has been uploading daily, starting from 03, some of those classic main event episodes that used to be only for us watchable recently on PokerGo. And I was really caught off guard. I think maybe we could I'll just spam the comments with each episode. Oh, we reviewed that this season and more on our podcast. So I'm surprised PokerGo is kind of devaluing the value of their content by doing that. But then again, I wonder if they place more value on the newer content versus the old stuff.
Yeah, I thought that was a weird decision as well. I mean, I've noticed a lot of complaints from people saying, oh, the main event should be free. So I guess this is maybe something to accommodate them, these classic main events being free. I don't know. It's, more free poker content that's out there in the public sphere, get people interested in poker. I think that's always a good thing. And, hopefully they'll also do, keep doing new poker content so we can have that. And maybe allowing some of the, other stuff in their vault out into the public sphere as well would be nice.
Yeah, because I saw on Twitter a lot of fans were in agreement that '05 was like the best year, and again that was top of our tier rankings. It still is, even
Yeah.
as I reflect on it every now and then. And speaking of the PokerGo vault, Sam, I mentioned to this a couple of days ago, but PokerGo has completely expunged all of the live streams of the 2022 main event. So all of those, the 10-hour session with Zilong Zhang completely gone, and in its place they have created 15 brand new episodes of that main event, which means that we are, by our own self-imposed contract law, we will definitely be covering those episodes in a future Two Fish at the Table Poker podcast episode after we finish King of Gold, of course. I think would be appropriate, and we'll have to see if it can, improve upon what we thought was like kind of third worst in from 2021. We'll have to see. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm up for that. And we'll add that to our rankings list, of course.
Yes. And as a result, that makes me nervous now, because now those 2023 live streams of us talking with Negreanu, me watching Helmuth, I'm going to have to find some way to sort of make my own, way of storing those moments, because, conceivably next year at some time they'll be wiped from the PokerGo vault as well. And I'll make a plea to PokerGo people, please don't just get rid of this content willy-nilly. There's a lot of great poker moments and content that is now lost forever unless you plan on somehow re-uploading it, which you haven't done for the other previous main event years. So I don't know why they do it now.
Or just put us in the edit. Just we'll take it if you just put us in the edit somewhere, both of us. Or shout out our podcast. If you're leaving the conversation that Ben had with Daniel Negreanu, if you
Day
just
one though, I mean, it's not going to. They're going to probably be from like day 4 onward, which means
I know
that's before. That's after I left Vegas this past summer. So
yeah.
I'm a little bit nervous about that. And this was brought to my attention from someone who commented on my 2+2 forum thread. This guy named Dogface. He said, FYI, PokerGo recently swapped out the 2022 main event live stream archive for edited highlight episodes. Time to do a review of 2022. So thank you so much for caring enough about our podcast to post on that stream. I've been the only one posting on that thread for months, almost years now. So the fact that someone is following up on that and cares enough about our podcast to comment about that really meant a lot to me. And Dogface, we will dedicate that future episode of our podcast to you. So thank you again. And that I think covers my little topic list of stuff. Anything else that you wanted to discuss before we sign off, Sam?
Well, yeah, if you have any other ideas for episodes, feel free to let us know in the comments. Again, movies, television shows, books, what have you. We're happy to review anything. If you want to appear on the show in any capacity, just let us know. We can interview you. You don't have to be a big name poker player. You can just be on the show. We'll work out some sort of interview with you. Doesn't have to be very long either. I mean, I know that some of our interviews have gone on for a couple hours. If you want to just be on for like 30 minutes, or if you don't even want to do an interview, you want to offer your own thoughts about poker media, we're happy to have you on. Whatever works, just let us know in the comments.
Absolutely. There's a lot of stuff happening in the poker world right now, which really kind of reinvigorates things that we can discuss going forward as we gradually approach the end of 23 and into 2024. So I'm very excited to see what will happen for us next. But I guess until next time, guys, enjoy your poker, enjoy your TV, enjoy your poker on TV.
Take care, everyone. Good luck if you're going to paradise.
Bye, guys.